That's enough. Let's go to Wayne Madsen until 5 after next hour. WayneMadsenReport.com. He, of course, worked with the National Security Agency. He also worked with major corporations on computer systems. I can't go over his entire bio here. He was in anti-submarine warfare in the Navy before that, and he's written for some of the biggest publications in the country, like the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, Philadelphia Inquirer, Houston Chronicle, Miami Herald. WayneMadsenReport.com is where you can find all of his great work. And he joins us to give us his take on Iran, this spectrum, this cornucopia of things that are happening. Sir, break that down for us, and then give us your take on other things that are happening geopolitically right now, Wayne Madsen.
Okay, Alex. Well, I actually happened to have spoken to an old friend of mine the other evening who was a very big advisor on U.S. Policy in Iran. The individual speaks fluent Farsi, the language of Iran, as well as Urdu, the major language of Pakistan, and Dari, which is spoken in Afghanistan. And his take on things was he is very much afraid that the U.S. will participate in some sort of military action before the election. Now, my feeling on this is, talking to some other people, is what will that entail? Will that be overt military action, or will it be covert U.S. support for a Anglo-Israeli and possibly French attack on Iran? That avoids the issue of the body bags and coffins coming back to Dover Air Force Base during the election year, but also basically disarms those Republican critics of Obama who say he's not doing enough against Iran. So he can basically have his cake and eat it too. There are some real problems with this, however, and I add the French in there. That's a caveat. Nicolas Sarkozy is also running for re-election, but in his case, he may see French support for military attack as something that can benefit him. He's very far down in the polls, and he may try to play that nationalistic card in France especially against Marine Le Pen, who's running for president from his right. So the British, though, you can pretty much count them in. The Israelis count them in. The U.S. may play a role, but it will be one where Obama can say, we support the action, but look, no U.S. military troops are involved. The other day, Obama announced a new strategy for the U.S. militarily. He's shifting focus from the Middle East to East Asia. And he met with the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and the Chief of Staff of the Army. This is a Pentagon plan. He's on board with it.
And that's just a public announcement of what China already knows. So-called U.S. bases our country's been taking over, being built now, even in Australia. That's why the president of China, as you know, a month ago said, prepare for war with the United States. I mean, that was in major headlines. This is getting crazy.
Well, and here's the problem. China and two of our allies in East Asia, South Korea and Japan, have already announced they're not going to abide by these sanctions against Iranian oil shipments, which are going to be kicking in soon. They've announced they're not going to participate. All three countries, China, Japan, and South Korea, rely heavily on Iranian oil exports, and what Iran gets in return for that is refined gasoline, because the Iranian refining capacity has really been hurt by U.S. sanctions. Of course, we know that Dick Cheney's company, Halliburton, tried to get in there and improve on those capabilities. But
they had it under Bush set up where only they were allowed to sell them the equipment. So just shows that they're always lecturing us about be for war, you're with the Iranians. Meanwhile, they're in business with them. But specifically, Wayne, looking at this right now, what do you make of the Israeli, U.S., British fleets steaming back into the Strait of Hormuz? What do you make of the Iranians a week ago saying, you better not come back through there, this is your final warning? What do you make of Iran talking about asymmetrical warfare in Tel Aviv and New York? Why are they saber-rattling so much more now?
Well, they're having to placate the war hawks in Washington, London, Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, and Paris. And also people like Ahmadinejad has to placate his war hawks in Iran. But I think there was a little bit of a monkey wrench thrown into these plans when the U.S. Navy rescued about a half dozen or so, or about a dozen Iranian fishermen who had been captured by Somali pirates. Now, the U.S. Navy and the Iranian Navy and also the Iranian Revolutionary Guard do maintain protocols to avoid incidents in the Gulf, and these have been very successful. So there are communications constantly between the U.S. Navy in the Gulf and the Iranian Navy and military. And I think the fact that the U.S. Navy rescued these dozen Iranian fishermen really was probably not very popular amongst some of the war hawk neocons here in Washington. They probably would have rather had the Somali pirates keep those Iranian fishermen. But I think that there's wiser heads are prevailing right now, especially in the U.S. Navy, the Fifth Fleet in Bahrain, and they have to deal with the Iranians on a daily basis. And obviously, they don't want to see any kind of war because they know, our fleet is pretty vulnerable to Iranian missile attacks over there. And as you mentioned, asymmetric warfare. Iran has a lot of influence in Iraq. And look, not all the U.S. troops have left Iraq. There's still, at certain bases there, we still have the private security contractors there. We still have a whole load of State Department personnel there. And these people would all be sitting ducks if the Iranians decided to activate their allies in Iraq. So the Pentagon probably more than anyone else knows what's at stake if these war hawks get their way.
Now, Wayne, I want to put out a nuanced statement here because our detractors will always do what they do. They'll always build straw men that don't really represent who we are or what we are, and then go out and have a sword battle with the straw man and claim that they've defeated it. But if you go back into October and November, it was all over the Israeli news, all over the European news that a strike was imminent. The Washington Times reported that Netanyahu wanted it. He believes politically that'll make him popular. And then right on time, all of my military sources said, yeah, it's on. We're being told, get ready. Move the troops to Kuwait, out of Iraq, get ready to back up the attack, getting troops covertly into Israel, now admitted months later. And the point is they were moving and green lighting. So we said, get on air, call Congress, tell them don't do this, get pressure on the military, listen to the former admirals, former chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Mullen, who said it was a disaster, the former head of Mossad, who Netanyahu fired because he wouldn't go along with this. This is not a good idea. Even, the top globalists are having a fight on this. And then they spin it and say, oh, we're always hearing about war with Iran. It's never going to happen. And then now it's in the news that they're moving towards a strike. Israel says they may strike. But the establishment puts out their operatives to say, oh, that's ridiculous. There's not going to be a war, so that we can't build opposition. Same thing with the NDAA. The first month, they have a debate saying it doesn't affect citizens. Then later they say, you bet it does. After they'd already passed it, then Obama signed it. He said he wouldn't sign it to kill opposition because, well, he's not going to sign it anyways. These are tactics. You've learned them. I've learned them. You've been on Capitol Hill for decades. I see you on C-SPAN there writing notes during these hearings. But the public gets fooled by these tricks, so they keep pushing for war while separately saying it's asinine that they're going to have a war as a psychological tactic so that we can't build an opposition to it. Then if we're successful and back off war for the third or fourth time, as we know 5 years ago, Cheney was about to do it, attack our own ships. New Yorker magazine, Cy Hirsch, is the same thing. Then when we're successful backing them off, oh, see, there was never a threat. Do you agree with how I'm breaking down their psychological operation or PSYOP? And do you concur with what I'm saying?
Well, of course, and we have the master of this cognitive dissonance, Cass Sunstein, is basically the propaganda czar for the Obama White House. So, you look at all his friends and colleagues, and even his wife, Samantha Power. She's the person who's dreamed up all these Arab Spring revolts and these themed George Soros-type color revolutions all around the world. And some of them, obviously, the one in Iran failed. The one in Tunisia and Egypt were successful, although they're probably ruining the fact that they even supported the one in Egypt. But I think you're correct. Yeah, This is a propaganda. Most of this is a propaganda war where they're just trying to get into people's heads, make them think something when in fact they're doing something entirely different.
From your decades of research, and I respect your analysis, your view on this, what do you think is going to end up happening with Iran? Or what are the 2 or 3 different probable scenarios that we're going down?
Well, we already know that this, the New York Times, once again, as is its wont, has put out this false information about Iran trying to develop a nuclear weapon. This is the same nonsense that Judy Miller was putting out when she worked for the New York Times. We're seeing it play out again. There's been really no change in that program. It's still CIA came out in 2003 with a new finding that Iran did have some nuclear weapons intentions, but it is basically a peaceful nuclear power program now. But they're still pushing this meme that Iran wants a nuclear weapon, and as long as they do that, they're going to have support from some of these lick-spittle Republicans. All
right, stay there. I want to hear where you think all this is going. And the war rhetoric intensifying. Wayne Madsen's our guest, WayneMadsenReport.com. I'm Alex Jones with Infowars.com and, of course, PrisonPlanet.tv. We'll be back tonight, 7 o'clock, but stay with us. More coming up. If you believe in this information and want to support its viral spread, go to the Infowars store at Infowars.com. We've got the new G.I. Joe Infowars T-shirts. We've got the incredible Pro Pure gravity-fed filters available at Infowars.com in the store. We've got a new DVD, Scientists Under Attack, the Don't Tread on Me flag. We've got all sorts of different bumper stickers to help spread the rebellion virally. It's all there, wristbands, citizen rule books in every order. Order online at Infowars.com today. The water filters, the canteens, it's all there. Infowars.com.